Well, Anthony Albanese, or anybody for that matter, will have an easy time remembering the unemployment rate this month. It's because it's the same at 4%, though the rate is the same. More jobs are being created. Let's get some analysis with Assistant Professor of Economics at George Washington University, Stephen Hamilton. Professor Hamilton, great to see you as always. Let's start with your take on this number. The government might even say it's under 4% when you go to the three decimal point, but what's your overall read on it?
Yeah, look, more of the same, Kieran, which is actually a very good thing, right? So we've had extremely strong employment numbers, actually almost all throughout the entire pandemic, even right after the first wave ended. And that's really continued. So 4%, it's fallen just below, you have to go to a few decimal places to see that. But it's, the strongest job market in half a century. So that sort of sets up a pretty incredible potential in Australia for really improved economic conditions right across the board, right? So the hope is that robust unemployment level, that robust job growth, that robust demand for workers will flow through to higher wage growth. That's forecast in the budget, and therefore higher living standards. So, the thing that I've been talking about a lot in the past couple of months is the potential for an economy to be much stronger after the pandemic than it was before.
Encouraging number in there as well. Youth unemployment down from 9.3% to 8.3%. It's the lowest level since 2008, Stephen Hamilton.
Yeah, exactly. And we're also seeing, a lot of the people on Twitter and out in the certain parts of the ideological spectrum complain a lot about the unemployment rate as being, not sufficient to capture the full breadth of the labour market. But even if you dig deeper, a lot of the narrower measures are also measuring exactly the same kind of robustness. So youth unemployment, you mentioned, also underemployment, right, which a lot of people have complained about, is declining to below pre-crisis levels. So really, there is really nothing, frankly, to complain about when you look at the current state of the economy. And, that sets up a pretty tough sell for the opposition during an election campaign.
Yeah, I want to get to your analysis on the campaign in a moment from an economic perspective. I guess the one challenge that really looms, or one of the big challenges that looms from such a low unemployment rate is the question of labour shortages, does it not? And we're seeing that at the moment at our airports with them bulging under the capacity with not enough staff.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And again, so you worry about two things. You worry about those labour shortages, but you also worry about inflation, right? So that really, really tight labour market generating higher wages, potentially generating higher inflation, and that creating a kind of spiral. So they're the kind of risks, I think, of this. Now, I'm a little bit sanguine about that. I'm not, frankly, so worried. I think the labour shortages will be sorted out as we get those larger number of immigrants to fill a lot of these roles. So opening up the border and having people come in, I think, will be hugely helpful in relieving some of these pressures. And, the inflation question, look, I don't know if the governor knows the answer. I don't know the answer. It's one of those things that we just have to wait and see.
Yeah, got it. And 6 weeks for Labor, or less than that now, 5 and a bit, to articulate its economic vision. You wrote in the AFR this week that it's important that Labor seeks to reassure voters it's a safe pair of hands, and to do so, maybe look at the repair of public finances.
Yeah, so Labor is in a very tricky position, right? So we have this incredibly robust economy, the strongest labour market in 50 years. We have radically improving budget position on the back of this stronger labour market and high commodity prices, and therefore rivers of gold flowing into the Treasury. So, that's a very difficult circumstance to try and make the case to the public that you need to change, right? Because it actually looks pretty good the way it is. Now, Anthony Albanese's gaffe earlier in the week of not remembering the unemployment rate and the cash rate, was sort of brushed off as a gotcha moment. But I worry that it speaks to something deeper, right? So I think there are questions out there about Anthony Albanese's economic credibility, rightly or wrongly. There are a number of things you can point to that make you a little bit worried about Anthony Albanese's economic bona fides, and he's doing his darndest, doing backflips to try and recast people's perception of him in their minds. You know, he studied economics, but if you dig a little deeper, you realise really he has a Bachelor of Marxism. He worked for the Hawke government. When you dig a little deeper, he worked for Tom Uren, who, you know, staunchly opposed the Hawke and Keaney economic reforms of the 80s. What I'd like to see from the opposition is a little less obsession with personality, right? Getting to convince people that Albanese isn't the lefty that people think he is, but instead point to concrete things, right? If people are worried about your economic credibility, think about what exactly they're worried about. What is to come do they expect from you that they're worried about, and reassure them that there's nothing to worry about, right? So we want to point to concrete things to give people a guarantee that you're a safe pair of hands. And as you mentioned, I think one way to do that would be to set out a very clear plan on how you will fix the deteriorating public finances. What are you going to do about the budget problem to show people that you're more serious about that problem than the government?
Assistant Professor of Economics at George Washington University, Stephen Hamilton, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Kieran.